Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's reading. I just want to point out that this reading is posted outside of the normal posting schedule. Usually, I try to post readings every Wednesday, usually in the afternoon, not at a very specific time, which I do need to work on for the collective, but you can rest assured that if there is no weekly reading, I will leave a community post explaining why. And sometimes the readings are delayed until Thursdays. But with that being said, again, this is a reading that is posted outside of the normal posting schedule. I felt really compelled to perform this reading for you. And I really believe that there is something very special in this reading. I'm doing this reading as we are in this waxing, I believe it's called the waxing gibbous, but it could be the waning gibbous. I'll have to double check in just a moment. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to look it up again, but it's the waxing gibbous moon phase. So it's 90% illuminated. So the full moon will be on August 16th. So that is definitely right around the corner. And so this just feels like a really pivotal moment to do this reading, and we're just going to jump right into it. So let's shuffle the traditional tarot. And I don't know why I always say traditional tarot because the deck that I'm using is the Y Spell Starlight Tarot deck. It's the blue version if you're looking for this deck on Amazon. And I really felt so drawn to their decks, and particularly this one. It just felt really unique. And blue is definitely my favorite color. And I just really feel so drawn to it. And I only use it for the collective readings. So it has, the collective energy that is this beautiful collective that I do every week. So thank you. But we are shuffling and we're going to see what comes out here. Okay, so our first card here is the Three of Cups in the reverse position. Now, I want to just explain for this particular reading, I feel really guided to speak about chakras, chakra centers. And so this might kind of look like a chakra reading in a sense. And I'm really tying it to this waxing gibbous moon phase that we're in, that I'm currently doing the reading in. And so with this Three of Cups reversed, when this cup, when this card is upright, it's, talking about friendship, celebrations, joyful connections, especially when it comes to the heart, when it comes to emotional support and stability. But this is sitting on the root chakra, and this is really speaking, and the feeling behind this card is really pointing to fractured bonds or relationships that were once seen as safe and supportive, but they now feel really false or shallow or very conditional. There's like this underlining thread of loneliness or disillusionment when it comes to your inner circle right now. And this may show up where you're realizing that some of these connections that were based on convenience or habit, you know, are not really serving you right now, that they're not bringing you that deep soul resonance that you're really longing and yearning for. And I know we kind of talk about that in some of the previous readings, but maybe not so much because we usually talk about healing messages. But yeah, there's some sort of like signal energetic interference that's going on, like gossip, rivalry, or others really trying to pull at your grounding energy, making it harder for you to really feel stable in a sense. And so, you may also be feeling really disconnected from your tribe or have really outgrown, these particular types of dynamics and relationships. And so you're really, really clinging to that sense of feeling grounded or really feeling independent, rather than relying on these old group dynamics. At least that feels like that's how this energy is being perceived for some of you. That's not all of you, but that's for some of you in the collective. And for many of you, you're really just looking at what's really draining your energy right now instead of what's really actually supporting you. You're really looking for what this card represents in the upright position. And so I'm getting this blockage type of energy too that's coming up. And it's really funny how all of this is really coming up with this one card. But I'm really feeling that it's like your root chakra is really being tested right now, by the energetic instability that's coming from a lot of these social ties that you're, bonded with. So this could be you feeling like you can't fully root yourself because of shifting alliances or unresolved wounds with certain people. Excuse me, certain people. Sorry, I had like a hiccup there. So that's probably, speaking on like the throat chakra, there's something that, is unresolved and you're not able to really fully say what you need to say. So that could be for somebody there because that felt really like a sharp jolt kind of hiccup. But anyway, spirit would want you to really reestablish your, focus on your grounding practices right now. And that could look really different for a lot of you. Journaling, meditating, cooking yourself nourishing meals, self-care, walking in nature, anything that really reminds your body and spirit that you are safe without needing some sort of external approval. Because many of you in the collective have really been tied to these soul contracts with someone external that really it's just not serving you right now, but for whatever reason, you're just staying, and that could be for many different reasons for, a certain level of comfort, or it's just, cheaper to keep this person in your life when you know that, your soul is crying for more in a sense. So it feels like heavy energy, it really does so far, just with this minor arcana card, but it really feels very, very heavy. Now, what I want to do is I want to draw an oracle card coinciding with each one of these cards. I just feel really guided to do that. So we're using the Akashic Records deck to do that. Okay, and our first oracle card is the Listen card, and it says, you're being asked to listen to your inner voice. It's been grounding you to do something or say something, and it's time to act on its wisdom. Now, I'm taking a moment and really letting that sink in, and I really hope you're doing the same because this is really a profound message here that's tied with this Three of Cups. And I'm really looking at the fox imagery of this card. There's definitely a spiritual significance to this card coming out, especially with that type of symbolism here. So, this is really, speaking on adaptation, awareness, and a strategy type of energy, that foxes are really kind of known for, and a heightened sense of perception. So, spirit is really asking you to really pay attention to subtle cues in your social and energetic environment right now. Because, like, when you think about these foxes, they see what other people really miss in a sense, and they're very strategic. They don't waste their energy on you know, unproductive hunts. They really operate from instinct. So spirit is really also, calling for you to really reinforce what you know intuitively because what this really feels like it's saying here is that you already know where the imbalance is. So spirit is really asking right now to trust your instincts and protect your foundation. And there's really no need to explain or justify, the feeling that you are feeling instinctively because your safety comes from inner clarity, not from external approval. So again, there goes that throat chakra energy there. So that's definitely really, prevalent here. So once we get to that throat chakra, we might, actually be really onto something here. But yeah, this is really, some heavy energy here. So this is definitely a card that I really hope resonates for many of you in the collective because, you know, a lot of you really don't fully trust in your intuition. It's like you know better when it comes to certain circumstances or situations that you put yourself in. But it's like for whatever reason, you just kind of keep going back. For some reason, I keep hearing like, and I don't really say in my readings that I hear things, but I keep going to this song by Mariah Carey called Heartbreaker, especially that line where she says, Heartbreaker, you got the best of me, but I just keep on coming back incessantly. So that's really, speaking volumes for many of you. And so I feel like so far, what this will resonate with is for people that are in, particular soul bond relationships where it may look like love or it may seem like, something that's everlasting or whatever, but it's really not. You know what it really is, you know that it's surface level, but for whatever reason you just keep going back incessantly. So, that's really heavy right there when you really think about it. Okay, so for the next chakra center, we are talking about I hope I'm saying this right, the sacral chakra. It's spelled Sacral. And this chakra center governs emotions, creativity, pleasure, and specifically relationships. And it's really interesting. We have the Nine of Wands in the upright position for this. So this is really talking about emotional stamina, boundaries when it comes to intimacy. I'm feeling a sense of cautiousness. I hope that's a word, but I don't think it is. But, being cautious is what it feels like. And emotional fortitude, I feel like that's something that's coming up too as a third of energy. So, what I'm really feeling is that many in the collective have been through a lot of challenges that have really tested their vulnerability, trust, and their creative flow when it comes to certain passions in their life. And it's really showing me that, you've learned to be really guarded when it comes to your emotional space while still standing strong at the same time. But that's not for everybody. Like, not everyone is really going through this right now. This is really just for like a select few, is what it feels like. So, those of you will know who it reaches. So, for the ones that it is reaching, please, if it's not connecting for you, leave that for the ones that it is connecting with. But there's also been like a test of boundaries when it comes to, intimate connections. And I'm just getting this vibe where it's like, there's a lot of unbalanced energy. I know this is upright, but there's a lot of like unbalanced energy where someone might have been giving too much of themselves emotionally or physically without reciprocity. But it's like, that, you're in this need to protect your sacred energy right now, if that makes sense. So for some of you, it's like you had this right to pleasure and emotional connection, but it's like you get to decide the pace and the depth of where that connection goes, because you've learned a pivotal lesson from the past, about certain boundaries and, how to share your energy, you know, and believe me, energy transference is 100% real, it really is. So, this also could be like a warning to really, have a healthy awareness of where your energy is leaking or where it's going. But for many of you, you really have learned, who is draining you, currently or from the past, and who is really essential to feed your soul. Because again, there's this thread of energy that's popping up here about, this need for soul depth, when it comes to certain connections. I feel like that's going to be like a theme in this reading. I really do. And so this right now, just feels like such a pivotal moment for you because it really is feeling like you are choosing, what really is serving you in the moment, and you're beginning to take that next and final step. This is a 9 card. So this is like you being prepared to take that next final step, by moving forward with the 10 card. So that's really interesting. I wonder if the 10 of Wands will come out, but it hasn't came out so far. But, I'm just wondering if that is going to be something that's going to come out. But there is this lower vibrational energy that I'm also feeling. And it really feels like, for some of you in the collective, you're really being guided to move slow when it comes to newer connections, whether they're romantic, platonic, or creative, and to really, be mindful of who you allow and let in to your energetic space, you know? But this is also like a return to joy. It's like, you're really yearning and really learning to heal to really get to that final step, of being able to thrive in, a lot of basking type of expression, movement, and pleasure in your life, physically and emotionally. So that feels really, really beautiful. But there is, again, like I said, this lower vibrational energy, and it just feels like someone's energy, rather their guard, is extremely high, and it's causing a lot of stagnation when it comes to creativity or being able to enjoy intimacy because of a lack of trust or distrust in someone or some sort of energy dynamic, and it's really blocking the natural flow of inspiration and connection. You've just built this boundary or this strong wall, so that's just something to be mindful of for, some of you in the collective. Now I'm shuffling the oracle cards and okay, so two of them have came out. Okay, so here we are with the pairs because that's a common theme in a lot of readings. This is actually it kind of made me laugh as I see this card that came out. It's the caring connection card, and the only reason why I'm laughing is because I remember, for those of you that are following Infinity, I think she has a deck, and this is the Magnetize Yourself channel, which I do hope that you guys are still, listening to those readings. But she has a card in one of her oracle decks that says Karen Connection or Karen Connections. I can't remember which oracle deck that she uses, but I just thought that was kind of funny because I don't think I've ever had a reading where this card has came out. But okay, so this card says a new supportive relationship is on the horizon. It may be a kindred spirit or possibly even romance. It could be someone new or the deepening of an existing relationship. Open your heart to this new connection. And I'm really captivated by the imagery of these dolphins. I know that's definitely spiritually, connecting here too. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. But the next card is the bring balance card, and it says you're putting too much energy into something, creating lack somewhere else. Take action now to correct the situation or risk further imbalance, which could lead to undesired results. And I'm looking at the imagery here too, and for some reason this reminds me of the Justice card, but there's also this moon in the background because there's this lady that's holding like this scale, but there's a moon in the background. So that's really symbolic of like something that isn't really quite being revealed. And then again, like I said, the Justice card, which hasn't came out yet. There's been no major arcana that's came out yet so far. But this is really, really interesting that these two cards have came out. And okay, so these cards are definitely really pivotal when it comes to talking about what we have been talking about so far, because there is something that I'm feeling here where it feels like this is like some sort of invitation to lower your guard or lower your fortress or these walls that you've created with this Nine of Wands energy here to allow something to move forward. Now, if you choose to do so with caution, that's definitely completely, up to you. We all have free will, but, something or someone wants to move forward with you. And it's up to you how you allow that connection to really come through. It really is. Okay. Now, okay, going back to these dolphins. Okay, so spiritually speaking here, dolphins are like emotional healers and they're known for their high intelligence, being really playful, their empathy. So this is like spirit sort of nudging you to like remind you to return to like the joy from the connections that you once we're basking in, but, maybe you let caution kind of override the pleasure and the emotional flow of that. And when you also think about dolphins, they move in pods. So, this is all about like community and, connection. So, this is, definitely like some sort of spiritualism symbolism where spirit is really nudging you to really let your guard down and really allow, whatever this particular caring connection potentially could foster into. It's almost like the fool's energy that I'm kind of feeling, where you just sort of like trust in the divine and just, know that it's going to take you to where, you need to go kind of energy in a sense. And so, you know, part of this guardedness too, it really feels like, spirit is saying with the bring balance to, bring in that fluidity type of energy that you may have had, in the past. Because in keeping yourself too blocked off, it's like you're risking a lot of stagnation on a lot of many different areas in your life. But I feel like we're particularly talking about, some sort of relationship or soul contract with somebody. So you could be missing something very pivotal here. Okay, so for our next chakra center, we are moving to the solar plexus chakra. And wow, we have the 10 of Wands. So it's so funny that I said that earlier. Now, this card is reversed. And this is definitely you like really stepping into the energy of really choosing what truly deserves your energy. This is like confirmation of that. So this is you like, learning to not carry what is no longer yours. You really are moving past that. So you have taken that next step and you have learned to release, and really only carry what is meant for you. So you really are releasing this energetic bond or tie to something that was definitely, giving you a lot of emotional weight that was left over from some sort of old paradigm or dynamic. So, it's like you're learning to regain your personal power here, and not be emotionally entangled in something. So that is like really significant there. That's really kind of funny in a sense that that came out the way it did. Okay, so the oracle card shifting through this. Okay, the oracle card that comes out matching this energy is the consider the options card. It says, you've narrowed your focus to one desired outcome, and you might be missing a bigger opportunity. Open up and let the universe send you the highest possible result. So that's definitely a very clear message there to be open to all possible outcomes, because you may have had this singular focus on how a particular outcome should look like. So this is definitely like spirit saying to widen your perspective and reclaim your power by exploring the possibilities rather than forcing one particular outcome. That's what this feels like here. So you don't have to overcommit to whatever the first plan that comes to mind just to feel secure. This is definitely about, reclaiming your power through being adaptable and not just, trying to force something by only focusing on a singular way to go. There's definitely like loopholes or, other ways of achieving the same result, if that makes sense. Okay, so for the next chakra center, we are moving to the heart chakra. And okay, so this is so, I don't know how to put it. I don't have words for this, but okay, the card that came out is so interesting. It's the Lover's card, and I have not seen the Lover's card in a reading for a while. I cannot remember the last time it was in a weekly reading or a collective reading for the channel, or even in a personal reading, to tell you the truth. I used to do love readings all the time, but I haven't had the time to do those for some of the people that have reached out for me to do those particular types of readings. But okay, so this is really interesting because I know most people immediately go to love, thinking about, romantic love, or they think about, Aphrodite or whatever. But this really is speaking about a choice because before the Lovers card was known as the Lovers, it was really the Choice card. And so this is really speaking that a sacred choice for alignment needs to be made from the heart rather than some sort of fear or obligation, is what this thread of energy is feeling like. So it's like spirit is really calling you to align your relationships right now, whether they're romantic or platonic, or honestly, even with yourself. Because, this is like an integration, that we're talking about, which we do talk about that a lot on the channel, integration and surrendering and letting things be as they are. Oh gosh. Okay. So as I'm saying that, I'm just noticing an angel number 123. So that could be really significant for someone as I just said that. So this could be talking about, bringing your inner masculine and feminine energies into harmony so you can experience love without some sort of level of self betrayal. So it's like your heart really knows the truth right now when it comes to love and your outlook on love. And honestly, when it's aligned for you, it's not meant to weigh you down. It's meant to open and elevate you. And so for many of you, that may not be looking like the case right now. Many of you are actually struggling right now to understand what love is meant to be, honestly. And many of you have just been so conditioned to really believe that, love is meant to be a certain type of way, whether it's meant to be, glamorous or, just full of all of these, immense highs and just, pleasurable all the time, but then there's some of you that believe that love is meant to be conditional, and that's just not really the case, so this really could actually be what feels like some sort of like shadow energy, shadow work type of, test from spirit. The reason why I say that is because, recently I was tested with something, and it wasn't necessarily like romantic love. It was more like kind of like familial love, like, from the family in a sense, where there was somebody from my past that I considered, to be a strong family, tie or bond that I felt like we had. But then there was this separation. And so, this test really feels like for many of you, very similar to what I recently went through, where it really feels like spirit is presenting something where you have this coming choice on whether you're going to reconnect, release, or redefine, particular soul contract bond, spiritual bond that you have with somebody. And so the test really is, are you going to honor your growth or are you going to fall into an old pattern? And I could tell you from my experience, I definitely honored my growth and let things be the way they are with no signs of resentment or, discord or holding on to, some sort of fantasy or something that really truly didn't serve me, but I know for many of you, it's hard to really fathom that level of soul mastery. And so there could be a situation that could be presenting itself that will come, not sure when, but, it will come for you. And it'll be when you least expect it. And it's going to be some sort of, test of character or merit or, what I just spoke about, some sort of spiritual test. And you have that choice on how you wish to proceed. Because I can tell you now, if you choose, something that actually serves you, that just opens up more doors for you and more alignment and more growth. But if you choose to re-enter that old pattern, I mean, you're just going to be repeating cycles, honestly. And they're going to be karmic cycles. It's going to be cycles that, is not meant to elevate you or raise your vibration. And so that's like the shadow aspect that I'm feeling with this card that just came out here. So that's kind of heavy in a sense too, but it really depends on how you look at it. And it depends on where you are in your soul's evolution, your growth right now. Okay, so for the oracle cards surrounding this particular type of energy, we have the obligation card And it also came out with another card too that was stuck together. And this card says, stop telling yourself you should when you cater to others or to unnecessary or to, okay, I feel like that's a typo. I'll read this again. I'm sorry. It says, stop telling yourself you should when you cater to others or to unnecessary expectations of others. Sorry, that just reads a little weird to me. You stop your flow of abundance, is what this card says. And then the next one, I feel like I should have read that differently. But anyway, the next one says boundless possibilities. And it says, you're standing at the edge of limitless potential. Don't limit your dreams based on past experiences. Embrace the boundless possibilities that await you. So that's really a direct message there from Spirit, which I do hope you understood what I was saying with the obligation card. Didn't mean to laugh there, but I just had to kind of chuckle a little bit. And so, basically, this is solidifying here that you do have this choice that you have to make. And you have to make it not from the duty of the weight of others' expectations. So if you've been carrying relationships because you feel like you should, this is the moment for you to really reevaluate. And certain obligations that you may have built over the years, for many of you, it feels like, these obligations were, made on guilt or fear. And it created like this heart blocking pattern. It's like conditioned you, in a sense, to accept this type of behavior and, call that love, which really that's not what it is. And so it's really preventing a lot of free flow of abundance and, spiritual reciprocity for you. Let's see, with this boundless possibilities card, it's like Spirit is really asking you to like really like open your heart, to love in all of its forms. It's really asking you not to limit your future connections to fit old templates. It's really, asking you to really look at love, and really honor your growth, and where you are and your, liberation. Do you want to be stuck or do you want to feel liberated, And so there's also a small number of you where, this is actually talking about like the self, so it's like Spirit is really guiding you right now towards like people and opportunities that really match like your elevation right now, especially after that Lion Gates portal, to really focus on the self, self love, self care, and where your needs need to be at, for you. And I can see many of you really, planning on stepping into like a field of limitless possibility, but that's only going to really happen if you release like these connections or patterns that, really weren't coming from the most authentic, resonance or space. So that's just something to really think about here. Okay, so for the next chakra center, we have the throat chakra. And okay, wow. So a slew of cards came out here. And I'm going to accept them because I do feel guided to do so. And so, okay, we have the King of Swords in the upright position, the Seven of Swords in the upright position. Okay, we have this beautiful Queen of Pentacles energy in the upright position. And we have another queen too. It's the Queen of Cups, but it's reversed. So, wow. So there's a lot of throat chakra, activity going on here. And yeah, basically what I'm sensing here is like, this is a call for like, strategic honesty. So there's like a truth that, needs to be delivered with compassion, but it needs to come, clear. And so Spirit is like really showing you right now that, when you're in full alignment, it means that you'll be speaking in a way that really supports both integrity and emotional balance, even if that, balance really requires, bravery. Okay. So there's like this important conversation or decision, where what is said and what is unsaid is going to really determine the outcome of what's going on here. So it's like right now, it's like there needs to be some sort of like clarity that needs to be spoken. It needs to be direct and fair. But it's like spirit is like, really cautioning you to really stay away from like this Seven of Swords energy, this tempting energy to possibly edit the truth, for comfort or advantage is what it feels like, So really being more strategic, in what you say and to really channel whatever this message is in a clear and grounded way, that's really supportive, and to really be cautious of, the embodiment of this Queen of Cups, coming from like a wounded place or a place from like emotional withdrawal. So I really feel like that's really significant for a very small number in the collective. The collective is, relatively small that I do channel into every week. So I really feel like that's only for maybe like one or two of you. So that's really pivotal. I feel like that's really something that you needed to hear. But yes, this is really like where you have to kind of like watch what you say in a sense, but you have to do it in a way where it's like you don't let a lot of unprocessed feelings, kind of like distort the message that you're trying to make clear here. It's really for spirit, kind of nudging you to come in a place where you're coming from like your highest self, in terms of wisdom and how you articulate things and how you express what really needs to be said. So that's what it really, sounds like here. So that's, very clear, definitely for, like I said, maybe one or two of you. Okay, so I feel like a blackjack dealer because I feel like cards are just really, coming out. So this is really spirit really wanting you to know a lot of these messages here. So three oracle cards came out, and we have here the victim mindset card. It says you feel the world is against you, and this will only cause you to attract more negative results. Stop the blame and take responsibility for your happiness. Only then will abundance start to flow. So it's definitely a direct message. And these other ones feel like direct messages too. We have the take a chance card, and it says, it's time to step outside your comfort zone. The world is waiting for you to take a chance. When you do, you'll be rewarded with newfound confidence and enthusiasm and will begin to attract new results. So that's definitely a beautiful message there. I'm getting like imagery here. Like this really looks like for some reason, like the Three of Wands kind of energy or kind of vibe here. So, or even the Two of Wands. So you may be really planning on how you make that next move or what you say. And we have the forgiveness card. It says, withholding forgiveness only hurts and prolongs the pain. It's time to forgive someone or maybe even yourself so you can stay on the right path of your highest potential. So that's definitely a beautiful message there. And I know that's definitely going to connect for many of you too. Okay, so for those of you that are still in this reading, I want to thank you. I know this is definitely a long reading. This might actually be the longest reading that I've posted on my channel. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time. And if you do enjoy this style of reading, definitely give me a like or write a comment. I would definitely love to hear from you. But moving on to the next chakra center, we have the third eye here. And okay, we have the Ace of Swords and it's in the reversed position. So this is definitely talking about a blockage. And this is what it definitely feels like here too. So it's definitely like spirit is really showing you where like ego or fear has been really clouding your vision, is what it feels like. Something isn't being clearly spoken. And there's a lot of like distorted energy that I'm feeling right now. So it's like you're being called to actively like clear your mental through meditation, those self-care practices that we talked about, journaling, walking in nature, because what I'm really sensing right now is like the answer for something is really already within you, but it's like your mind needs to kind of quiet itself before it can rise to the surface. is what it feels like. So there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion. So something's really like clouding your intuition right now. It's really making it harder to separate truth from illusion. And I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of overthinking, a lot of self doubt as well, a lot of questioning your own inner knowing. You're not really connected to your intuition at this time, is what it feels like. It's like you're really kind of doubting or drowning out, the voice of spirit in a sense, because I get the sense that spirit is really sending you a lot of signs about, something. And I really feel like it's connecting to what we were talking about earlier here. It has to be with the soul contract energy that we were talking about earlier. So I feel like that's really specific for many of you in the collective. Okay, we have the scattered energy card, and it says you have too much in your plate and have lost your focus. This is causing you to feel exhausted, overwhelmed. Prioritize your well being and create a new plan. So that's definitely coinciding with this particular type of energy here on the third eye. So that feels really heavy, honestly, for many of you. I get the sense that many of you are kind of walking aimlessly in a sense. You're looking for clarity, but it's like you're not really allowing it to really flow through at this time. So it's definitely a call to really, reevaluate like where you are right now. Okay. So for our last chakra center, which is the crown chakra here. Okay, it looks like we have the Seven of Pentacles in the reverse position. So this right here definitely is spirit saying that you have been really faithful. Okay. You've been faithfully tending a garden, so to speak, and it's now time for you to really start waiting on seeds that are never going to sprout or that are never meant to sprout. And the spiritual path that you're really entering right now, you're entering a season right now where it's like pruning is going to serve you more than planting, so to speak. So this is you really trusting your inner sight, okay? It's really you, focusing really on you. Like this is what it feels like right now, It's like releasing what feels stagnant right now is what it feels like, okay? It's really you rethinking where you've been planting your energy. So it's like you're being nudged right now from spirit to really stop watering what isn't meant to grow. And that's going to look different for each of you, whether that's a job, whether that's some sort of career move, something to do with, family, friends, a lover, it's definitely that type of energy that I'm feeling. It's really letting go of like forced timelines. So it's really like, coming to terms, realizing that, not everything in your life should be rushed. And it's like pushing for results, too soon is really like cutting you off from the fullness of what, spirit is trying to prepare you for. And it's you breaking out of this investment pattern, of like guiding you, spirit guiding you basically on pulling back from any commitments or any kind of like draining fixations, that's taking you away from higher connections, is what it feels like. So this is really, really, powerful, honestly. I mean, this is a minor arcana card, but it's really, really powerful. Okay. It really is. And there's just so much that, can really be said here. And I want to pull another card. Okay. I want to pull, before we pull our oracle card, I want to pull the card that's really like talking about all this energy here from this reading. And we have here the Hermit card. Okay. And it's reversed. So I gotta tell you, collective, this is really you, okay, reemerging, okay? This is you pulling out of this like overly internal phase that you've been in. You've really been processing, healing, you've been observing, you've been standing on the outside looking in, but now the lesson is don't get stuck in reflection, okay? It's really time to apply this wisdom that many of you have gained and to move this outward in a connected way, to take this integration of lessons, okay, and to really step forward and, stand up and live it out. That's what this is saying here. This is really, showing you that everything that you've been through, all this guardedness, this disconnection, this burden energy, themes of choice, releasing old investments, this isn't random insights. This is like a roadmap for you to really re-enter your life, more clearer, more intentional, excuse me. And, I'm just seeing here that, you really been in like this season of inner work for quite some time. You really have. You've been really working on yourself. You've really been, stepping up more for you and reflecting on a lot of this. But it's now time to really, begin to live this reality, for you. Okay, you've learned so much through a lot of these portal energies and these, alignments, of energy that has been going on cosmically, but it's really time for you to really, step out and really show the world what you've learned, so to speak. And so this is like powerful energy. This is you really not being withdrawn and really more stepping more into you, stepping more into where you were always meant to be, honestly. And so for the Oracle card that I drew with this, we have the Professional Assistance card, and it says, it may be time to seek wise counsel. This could be in any life area, from legal or financial advice to more personal needs, such as counseling or therapy. So that's definitely a direct message there. So okay, so with that said, we are going to shuffle one last oracle card, and it's going to be from the spiritual messages card, which I haven't excuse me, which I haven't used in quite some time. And we're just going to draw one card to really close this reading here. And so that card that came out is the card that says, look past what you feel are your incapabilities. Instead, focus on everything you have achieved so far. It is okay to acknowledge your weaknesses, but keep in mind that they don't define you. Your strength and your beautiful soul are clear for all to see. So that is definitely a beautiful place to end the reading. I want to thank you guys so much for, extending your beautiful high vibrational energy to this reading. I know this is definitely the longest reading on the channel, but I definitely want to thank everyone for being there for this, extending your beautiful high vibrational energy and helping to co-create these messages. I know that there's so much in here that will connect with you on many different levels, but again, only take what definitely is for you and leave the rest for others that need to hear it and need to sit with this. And again, thank you so much. I'm so, ecstatic that I have been able to be there for you guys on so many different levels, spiritually speaking. And I definitely hope that this space will continue to grow for this small collective and that you will continue to be guided by these messages. But, definitely keep in mind that you have free will. So, you don't have to completely, live by what the messages come out here. This is definitely just showing you an outline of what is going on in your life, what you already intuitively know, and where it is that you need to go and how you can be more aligned to your highest potential. So with that said, thank you again. I do hope you have a wonderful remainder of your day, and I will see you in the next reading.